I never thought that my retirement would start with a debt pit instead of fishing, and that not the state, not the bank, but my own children would throw me there. My name is Tom Harris, 72 years old, a retired former auto mechanic from the Austin suburbs. I've been under a car all my life. My entire spine is like a map of Texas cracks and potholes patched up with pain and patience. But I didn't complain. I worked. For my family, though we lived with Alice for almost 50 years. At first, we were poor. Then it was easy. And now, finally, we waited a pension and peace of mind. Our trailer by the lake, an old boat fishing in the morning, at evenings with a book, sometimes TV. We had been waiting for this all our lives. And then Brian came along. My son Brian has always been a little better than me. He went to college, worked in technology, and seemed to know things I couldn't even dream of. He lived in the city, had his own office, laptop, French press, and coffee with almond milk. And one Thursday, I was sitting on the veranda with Alice, cleaning my fishing rods, and she was reading. His car pulled up. A new car. It was black, glossy, like the sweat I used to get in the garage in the summer. He walked into the house, wearing that smile I'd known since childhood. It only appeared when he wanted something. "Dad," he began, sitting down across from me. "I have an idea. A big one. A startup. Again. I couldn't help myself. It wasn't the first time. But this time, everything is different. It's an investment in cryptocurrency, in virtual assets. It's not some kind of pyramid scheme, it's the future." He convinced me. How much do you need?" Alice asked quietly. "Just to borrow. For 6 months. I'll pay it back with interest. 20,000. It was our savings. Almost everything we had saved for a rainy day. But how can you say no when it's your son?" Your hope, your blub." We agreed. Naively, out of lot of stupidity. At first, everything seemed calm. Brian called, said that everything was going according to plan. That he even sent me a shot of some stock exchange. The numbers were growing, the charts were jumping up. I didn't understand anything about it, but I believed him. But a month later, he stopped calling. And then, he disappeared. There was just silence. No messages, no calls. "Alice and I didn't sleep at night," she said. "Maybe something happened." I felt that something had happened, but not what she was afraid of. I dreamed that I was standing by a lake holding a fishing rod, and instead of a fish, I saw a bill. A red one. A debt. Instead of the sky, the stock exchange. And I was drowning. I started looking at the bank account. And I saw that in addition to those 20,000, 2 more had disappeared. It was an automatic withdrawal. Something was signed. Something they forgot to mention. I showed Alice. She was silent. For a long time. And I sat in the kitchen with a mug of black coffee. It tasted bitter like the first defeat. I didn't know what hurt more, the money or the feeling of being used. My own son. The one I took to soccer. The one for whom I worked nights to buy him his first Nike sneakers. The next day, I called Brian. His voice was strained, alien. "It's all gone, Dad. The market is down. But I'll pay it all back." "When?" I asked. The word, soon, hung in the air like a cloud before a storm. I hung up the phone and realized that this was not the end. It was just the beginning, because Sarah was already knocking on the door, and her request would change everything. The money was gone. My son was gone. But even worse, my daughter was gone. The next morning after talking to Brian, I looked at the accounts again. There were charges I didn't know about. Online services, subscriptions that I had never signed up for. And I sat there sipping my bitter coffee and felt a weight clenching around my chest. Alice was silent. She was so quiet that it seemed she was gone. She was sitting in a wicker chair, wrapped in a checkered blanket, looking out at the lake. It seemed to me that she was aging right before my eyes, as if years had fallen on her that night. And then there was a knock at the door. And Sarah, our daughter, was standing on the doorstep with a bag and a half-smile that didn't bode well. "Hi, Mom, Dad. Can I stay with you for a while?" "What happened?" Alice asked. Jack, well, we broke up. Again. Sarah, I couldn't resist. Sarah is another story. Her life was a soap opera, 3 marriages, 4 moves, 2 children who lived more with us than with her. And always something was wrong. She came in, sat down on the couch, and started telling me how Jack was toxic, unsupportive, and economically limited. "But I have a plan," she suddenly said, enthusiastically as always. "I'm creating a natural cosmetics brand. With my own hands, organic, everything is trendy. I just need a little investment." I felt the blood rush to my face. "Sarah? Are you serious?" Alice gave me that look I knew by heart. There was understanding and fatigue and fear. "Just 10,000, Sarah continued, to get started. "I am your daughter." I was silent. For the first time in my life, I didn't know what to say. I had already given Brian 20,000. Now Sarah is asking for 10. We'll be left with 0. And we're not 20-year-olds. We're not going to recover. There's no time. But Alice. She wiped away a tear and said, "We will." But for the last time. In the evenings, I watched Sarah mixing up some jars, gluing labels, taking pictures of the jars on the kitchen table. She would post the photos on the internet, make live streams with filters. And every time she repeated, "It will all work out soon. The main thing is the algorithm." The algorithm, I remembered Brian. He also talked about the algorithm. He believed in it more than in himself. 3 weeks later, Sarah came to me in tears. "Instagram has collapsed. My account was blocked. A competitor has started complaints. It's all because of her." I sat there clenching my fists. And the money. I spent it. I bought a package. A new iPhone to shoot videos, lights, a tripod, advertising. I got up and went outside. It seemed to me that the air was heavier than water. Every breath I took hurt. There was only one thought in my head: I'm an idiot, an old, naive idiot. My son disappeared with 20,000. My daughter, she burned 10. And I am silent, I let them. Alice and I stayed up late that night. She whispered quietly, "It's not our fault that we love them so much. It's just, we didn't teach them to be afraid. You worked, I took care of them, and they thought life was a gift. A gift that someone will always pay for," I added. The next morning I found a letter from the bank in my mailbox. The subject was an outstanding loan in my name, but I had never taken out a loan. Many people come up with ideas, but only a few are willing to burn someone else's pension for them. Sarah walked around the kitchen like a lioness in a cage. She didn't stop for a minute, gestured, spoke quickly and passionately. "Dad, listen, you just don't understand the scale. These are not just creams. It's a philosophy. It's a lifestyle. It's a brand." And I've already come up with the naming. Berzl by Sarah. She threw a sheet of paper on the table with the logo printed on it. There was a hand reaching for the sun. The signature was in a purple font that seemed to have been invented in 2007. I looked at the letter and said nothing, because if I did, there would be a scandals. And I was tired of scandals. I was 66. I wanted to go fishing. I wanted silence. I wanted my children to live their own lives, not to consume mine. And I had already found a distributor in New York, a woman who sells through TikTok and works with bloggers. She says if I send her a shipment of tea sets, she'll get everything going. Sarah. Alice began cautiously. "How will you make them?" "Well, I need some money, of course. But not much. 5,000. Ain't a far raw materials, packaging, and a consultation with a marketer. I already talked to him. He has a course." I tried to take a deep breath. It didn't help. Sarah was sticking with us with a dream that looked like another financial robbery. And the worst part was that she sincerely believed she was saving the world. I felt cruel when I disagreed, but it was even worse to feel like a fool when I did. She saw no limits, and her little bit always turned into a complete failure. But to say no, it was like hitting a puppy. Alice was better than that. She knew how to say no. "Sarah, why don't you try selling some of what you've already done first? Without incurring any new costs. I get it. You don't believe in me. You never have. Brian's everything. Nothing for me. and the game started again, in which she was the victim and we were the monsters. And I could not stand it and went out to the garage. There were my old clothes, fishing gear, a box of baseballs, photos from work, everything that was left of my life. I sat down on a stool, and my hands reached into the drawer. I took out an old address book. Everything was written in expenses, savings, investments, and then I looked at the banking app on my phone. The balance was just under $3,000. I had already given the rest to my children. When I returned to the house, I said, "Sarah, I don't have $5,000. And even if I did, I wouldn't give it to you, not because I don't believe in it, but because it doesn't work. You're not ready." She stared at me like a stranger. Her eyes were sparkling. "You mean you won't help me?" "I have. More than once. And each time I was left with nothing." She was silent for a few seconds. Then she slammed her hand on the table, packed her bag, and ran out of the house. We heard the car start up and disappear into the distance. Alice was crying. I sat there in silence, and at that moment the phone rang. "Mr. Harrison, it's Wells Fargo. We're calling about your line of credit." I stopped the woman on the other end of the line. "I didn't take out a loan. A $30,000 loan taken out 2 months ago, tied to your address. I have your signature and a copy of your passport." I felt cold. I slowly put the phone down. There was only one thought pounding in my head. One of my children had taken out a loan in my name, and I know who it was, though every marriage has a limit. And when a woman is silent for a long time, thunder always sounds louder. The house was quiet. The kind of silence that cuts your ears, not calms you down. And I sat in the kitchen with the same note from the bank in my hands. Numbers swarmed in my eyes, suspicions in my head. Sarah. Sarah could have done it. But how? Why? And most importantly, how long has this been going on? Alice walks into the kitchen. Her steps are light, but something in her eyes was different. Not tired, no. It was the look of a man who had decided that he was going to say everything. "We need to talk, George." I threw the papers aside. Saying yes meant hearing more than I was ready to hear. "I know about the loan," she said, "and I know that Sarah took it out." My heart seemed to stop. I was silent, looking at her, and she continued. "She came to me 2 months ago. She was crying, begging. She said it was her last chance, that it would definitely work, that she wouldn't ask for anything else." I gritted my teeth. "And you signed it?" "No, George. She brought copies of your papers. Aya and I didn't know where she got them. But she said you'd have everything under control, that you'd agree when you found out. And you believed her." I'm tired of being the one who always says no." Her voice began to tremble. Her eyes filled with tears. "She's your daughter. I've seen you melt when she asks for something. I have been silent dozens of times. About her debts, about her bad ideas, about the time she asked for $2,000 to start a channel. I saw you sneakily transferring money to her, even when you denied yourself something, and I thought maybe for once she would actually do something. I looked down, not because I was ashamed. She stole my papers, Alice. She forged my signature. This isn't just emotion, it's a crime. It's your daughter," she said quietly. "Our daughter? That's no excuse. That's even worse." We sat in silence, and I could feel an invisible wall growing between us. And not just because of Sarah. Because of the years of silence, compromises, and sacrifices we made by silencing each other's problems. We had become codependent on silence. Alice stood up. Her gait was firm, decisive. "I will not be silent anymore. It's destroying me. I've been covering for Sarah for years. Now it's enough." She pulled a notebook out of a drawer. An old, thick notebook. I hadn't seen it before. She laid it down in front of me. "This is everything. All the transfers, all the requests. With checks, receipts, even text messages. I kept track of it all, because I knew that sooner or later you would see it." I opened the first page. There were dates, the amounts, reasons. $1,500 for studying at an online school. $3,000 to launch an Etsy store. $500 for advertising on Instagram. It was not a one-time thing. It was not a last chance. It was a system. A system of deception that we allowed ourselves to create. Each entry was one step backwards. Why didn't you ever show me this? Or because you didn't want to know, and because you lied to yourself that she will learn, that it will pass. And I didn't want to break your heart. But now we are at the bottom. I suddenly remembered how last year we canceled our trip to Arizona. They said it was too hot, too expensive, not the right time. But in reality, we didn't have the cushion we had before. I remembered how I sold my old pickup truck, which I dreamed of restoring. Oh, and how he closed one of his retirement accounts because he needed to repair the roof. And then he realized it wasn't a roof. It was a hole that we didn't want to see. Alice looked at me closely. Avahai, we don't stop it now. Everything will be lost. All of it. And at that moment the doorbell rang. We looked at each other, and my heart was already telling me that something was behind that door that would change everything. Emma, he dreamed of having morning coffee on the veranda. And he got coffee from a vending machine at 3 a.m, among strange walls and concrete fatigue. It took me a while to realize what had happened. Everything seemed to go in a circle: conversations, promises, hopes. And then banks, bills, collectors, and silence on the pension account. There was nothing to pay from. The worst thing was not the realization that we had lost. It was the fact that I, the husband, the head of the family, broke down at the finish line. Retirement was supposed to be the start of a new life, a calm one, without running around, without stress. But no. I returned to where I started in my 20s, night shift. The smell of plastic, cuts on my fingers, and a petty cash check. After the conversation with Alice and that damn notebook, I tried to put all the finances together. We had a little over 1,000 left in the account. The debt is over 80,000. Pension funds almost zero. Sarah disappeared. She just turned off the phone and stopped answering. I was sitting in the bank when the manager, a young guy with a TikTok hairstyle, gave me some advice. Maybe a temporary job. You're still full of energy. I wanted to slap him. But I nodded, because what else was there to do? Though the fastest place to hire pensioners in warehouses. Delivery, packaging, night shifts, no health insurance, no benefits. But with cash on hand. I started with 5 shifts a week, from 11 in the evening to 7 in the morning. Do you remember how after 60, your body no longer obeys you as it used to? I felt it on the second day. My knees, back, and eyes hurt. But I kept quiet. Because I had to pay for everything else, both for my mistakes and for Sarah's dreams. The warehouse is in the suburbs. It's cold and damp. Each box weighs more than it looks. The young people are fast and enthusiastic. I am slow. They look down on me. Once I dropped a box, and someone behind me said, "The old man can't stand it." I didn't turn around. I just picked up the box and kept walking. At the end of the first week, I realized that I had lost everything. Not just money. I lost my dignity, my health, my sense of security. I was afraid to fall asleep during the day because I was dreaming about banks, numbers, the same nothing. Your debt is. Alice held on. She made me breakfast after her shift, but she didn't ask too many questions. But her eyes were red every night. I saw her wake up in the middle of the night and go check her phone. Maybe Sarah would finally write. She didn't. One day, at about 3 in the morning, I was standing by a coffee vending machine. I poured myself a cup and just sat down on the concrete. I sat there and looked at the floor. And I thought, what if we had said no back when Sarah first asked for that stupid camera? What if I hadn't followed my heart and stuck to my head? Would I be here now, in the dust, instead of at home, under a blanket, with a book? After my second week's shift, I sat down in the kitchen, right in my uniform. Alice silently put the coffee in front of me. I looked at her and broke down. I can't do it anymore. She came and sat down next to me. She took my hand. Me too, George. We both can't. There was something terrible about the way we became a team in defeat. When we were young, we fought together for our home, for our children, for our future. Now we were fighting not to fall. My old ex-David, my old friend from the army, called. We hadn't seen each other for 5 years. Somehow he heard about me through a mutual acquaintance. George, I heard you're working now. Yeah, night shift. Romance. I have an idea. It's nothing serious, but I can throw you a case. At some point, we all face a question that haunts us. Maybe I'm the one who ruined everything. The worst part is when the answer comes from within. After that conversation with David, something changed in me. I can't say that I felt hope. More like a temptation to run away. All my life I had been teaching children to be responsible. And now I wanted to run away from life, from debt, from guilt. In the first days after David's proposal, I didn't answer the phone. I was afraid that if I said yes, I would no longer be able to say no to myself. George, you still think you're doing everything alone. But that's not true. I know how you feel. You don't, David. You don't have the kids who fucked up your last 40 years. Silence on the other end. Then only silencing, or maybe you just didn't want to see where it was going. Those words stayed in my head like a thorn. You didn't want to see. I walked around the kitchen like a caged lion, and I remembered. Sarah had always been short-tempered, stubborn. I remember when she was 15, she dyed her hair pink and said she was going to be an artist. I just laughed at that. Your old man can take it. Or did I plant that landman then? Sam has always dreamed of business. From the first grade, he was selling something gum, key chains, then cryptocurrencies. I told everyone, my son will be the next Musk. Didn't I put this dream in his head? Alice was silent, but there was more pain in her silence than in any words. One day I said to her, maybe we just loved them too much. And she said, no, George, we just saved them too much. It was like a slap in the face, but I thought I was saving my family. But maybe I was saving myself. My sense of being needed, of being important. I was a hero as long as I had money. As long as I had something to give. That night I didn't go to work. I just sat in the kitchen. I was alone. I looked at an old family album. Sarah in a ball at tutu. Sam at the school board with his diploma. I was smiling with a glass of champagne in a suit I hadn't worn in 5 years. And then came the question that has kept me awake to this day. Didn't I break them by pretending that everything in this world is simple and easy? That there will always be money. That my father will solve everything. The next day I called Sarah. The 4th attempt in 2 weeks. And miraculously she picked up the phone. Hi, Dad. Hi. How are you? I'm surviving. Just like you, I guess. She paused. And I could hear something different in her voice. She wasn't the same daring dreamer. She was just a tired girl who couldn't stand her own ambitions. Sarah, I didn't call to blame you. I just wanted to tell you that I'm to blame too. You. Yes, I taught you that dreams are important. But I didn't teach you that you have to pay for your dreams. And not just with money. She was silent. Then quietly, Dad, I don't know how to return everything. And I'm afraid to tell you, but I'm pregnant. It was like an electric shock, pregnant. At this point in her life, when everything has fallen apart, when she has no home, no job. And he's around. Not since the bankruptcy. I wanted to scream. I wanted to become the one who decides again. But instead I just said, I'm with you, Sarah. Mom and I will figure something out. When I said this to Alice, she just sat down. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just sat down and said, well, we'll be parents again. From scratch. And then I realizing it's not just about the kids. It's about us. We have put ourselves in the trap of rescue. And now, we have to either get out of it or live in it to the end. And now I'm sitting here looking in the mirror and asking myself, maybe this whole catastrophe is not because of them, but because of me. And if so, is there still a chance to fix everything? They say that there is nothing scarier than seeing a stranger in your child. But it's even scarier when you realize that this stranger is afraid of you, or simply doesn't love you anymore. I have always believed that children are an extension of us. our echo in the future. But as I sat across from Sam in his cramped Detroit apartment, smelling of fried bacon and cheap fear, I looked into his eyes and didn't see myself. I saw only fatigue. Dad, I didn't ask you to pay for my project. It was your decision. Sam, you were standing in my kitchen crying like a baby. How could I not help? Have you thought about how I'm going to live with this now? You've made me owe you money. And I can't even call you now because I'm ashamed. I didn't answer. I had no words. This was no longer my son who, at the age of 5, asked me to buy him a tractor to plow his grandmother's garden. This was a grown man burned by his dreams and my sins. I went outside without saying goodbye. The February wind hit my face like the truth. I walked to the bus station, even though I had a return ticket for an Uber. Driving home, I thought about how it all happened. When exactly did my children become people I don't understand? Maybe when I said, okay, instead of no. Maybe when I decided that love was a synonym for money. It wasn't that they were wrong that was eating at me. A night was that I couldn't talk to them anymore. It was as if we spoke different languages. I spoke the language of life. They spoke the language of expectations. When I got home, Alice was sitting in the kitchen. She didn't ask me how it went. She already knew. There was so much silence between us that you could cut it with a knife. Sarah doesn't want to give birth anymore, she said suddenly. That she is afraid give the child the same life as she had. I sat down. For the first time in a long time I wanted to smoke, even though I quit 20 years ago. So what does this mean? Are they blaming us? For everything. They know George. They're writing us out. Like a chapter that didn't work out. I felt cold. It wasn't anger. It was some deeper feeling of cut roots. As if the tree you've been growing all your life had just decided you were a weed. At night, my brother Jack called. We hadn't spoken in years. But this time he dialed himself, George, I heard you're not doing well. Listen, I don't know how it happened, but I once had the feeling that my children were strangers. And what did you do? Nothing. Sometimes it's the only option. They don't want you to interfere. Then go away and watch from a distance. Maybe one day they'll look back. Ada, these words were like the last nail in the coffin of my illusions. I always thought that parenthood was a struggle. That even if they don't hear you, you have to shout. And now silence. I got out of bed. I looked in the mirror, and there was an old man with broken dreams and red eyes. And then I asked myself for the first time, what if a real father is someone who steps aside in time? The next morning, Alice and I were sitting on a park bench. For the first time in a long time, we were silent. But it was a different kind of silence. Without pain. What if they don't come back? She asked suddenly. Then we'll create a new fall for ourselves. Without them. But with dignity. She took my hand. And then I realized we haven't lost yet. It's just that this game is different. And the players are not our children, but ourselves. At the post office, I took a large envelope. I put a photo from the last Christmas in it. A postcard with a signature. If you ever want to remember who we were, I'm still here. And on the back was a phone number. The same one. I don't know if they will call. But now I know that my role is not to delay. It is to be the one who will endure. There is a silence that calms you down. And there is a silence that screams. And when it settles in a house where children's voices used to be heard, where they quarreled, laughed, broke plates and made up, this silence becomes the loudest sound in life. The house has become too big, although the square footage has not changed. It's just that when the voices disappear, the walls begin to hum with loneliness. Alice and I wore slippers that didn't squeak. Even the kettle stopped whistling like it used to. Breakfasts became shorter. Lunches became more silent, and dinners disappeared altogether. No one wanted to cook borscht for everyone, when everyone was just her and me. I sat in a chair by the window and looked at the mailbox. Every morning at 8 o'clock I waited for a letter, for a call, for some kind of sign. but the box was empty, just like my voice on the phone when I tried to leave a message for Sarah or Sam. Why aren't they calling? Why did they get off so easily? Maybe we taught them to be quiet. George, I found a box of toys. What toys? The ones we left in the attic. Teddy bears, cars, Sarah's dolls. I didn't know what to do with them. And I didn't have the heart to throw them away. But to keep them, it was like keeping the door open to a house where no one would come back. We were silent. I didn't know what hurt more, that the children had forgotten us, or that we were still hoping. On Friday, at exactly 3 p.m, I received a message. It was from Sarah. Hi, Dad. I've been thinking about what you wrote. I need some time. I'm not angry. I'm just tired. I don't know if I'll be able to make it. But thank you for coming. It was a sentence that could have meant nothing. But I read it over and over again because it contained, not hope, but memory. And that was something. Alice and I decided to clean up the place, sell the old furniture, redecorate the rooms, maybe move to a smaller house. I joked that our refrigerator had become the biggest inhabitant of this house. Adosi, she laughed for the first time in a long time. But even in the midst of laughter, there was always silence. She lay between us in bed. She sat with us in the kitchen. Sometimes she even answered our thoughts. Emma, one night I woke up from a dream with Sam holding my hand. We were sitting on a bench silently. He said, I don't know who I've become, Dad, but I haven't forgotten who you were. And he disappeared. I went to the kitchen. I opened the refrigerator. I closed it. I walked down the hall and just lay down on the floor, because I could no longer stand this new, empty version of life. I didn't pray much. But that night I whispered, if you're there, if you're listening, just make sure they know that I wasn't angry. I just didn't know how else to say it. Maybe no one heard me, but I felt a little bit better. The next day I wrote a letter to them, to myself. Dear George, you spent your whole life building a job, a home, a family, and you thought that your children would be a part of you even when they became adults. But they are different. They are not copies of you. They are their own movie. You were not perfect, but you were. And that's what matters. Your story does not end with their mistakes. Your story is about staying human even when you are no longer invited to Christmas. Sincerely, you. Alice and I did not move. We stayed. We put up new curtains. We changed the lamps. And we learned to make coffee for just 2 people. And every night I leave one light on the porch. Maybe they don't need it. But I do. Because even in the silence, even in the emptiness, I still have room for hope. And if you, who are listening to this, are sitting in the same chair, waiting for a call or a letter, know this. You are not alone. There are people like you. We are silent. But we are there. And subscribe to the channel if you also believe that even in silence, a voice can still appear. Not every story has a full stop. Some end in a meaningful silence. It doesn't ask for permission, it just comes and stays. A few months have passed. It is winter, the snow crunches underfoot, but leaves no footprints because no one comes. Alice and I still live in our big house. And we still don't know if anyone wants it but us. Sarah never came, and Sam hasn't written. And I'm still waiting, not because I'm an idiot, but because I'm a father. One evening I sat on the porch. The frost was getting under my sweater, but I didn't want to go in. I was staring at the road. Every headlight seemed familiar, but not a single car stopped. Alice came over and sat down next to me, wrapped in a blanket. I didn't answer, because I didn't know. The next day I wrote another letter. Without a name, no greeting. I know just a sheet of thoughts. I don't know who you have become, and I don't know who I have become. But something is broken between us, and I'm not sure if it can be glued back together. Maybe we were too strict. Or maybe we were too soft. Maybe we didn't love the way you wanted us to. But we did love, and if that wasn't we're sorry. We just don't know how to do it anymore. I put the letter in the drawer, not for someone to read it. I just wanted it to be there. And that same week I went to the store to buy bread. A young woman with a child was standing at the entrance. I thought she looked like Sarah. She walked the same way. The same nervous smile. I stopped. My heart jumped out of my chest. Action, she was back. And it wasn't her, but I smiled, and she smiled back. And that day, for the first time in a long time, I did not cry. At 9 in the evening, the phone rang. An old line from the 70s. Oh no, the voice of an automated caller, unknown number. Press 1 to answer. I pressed it. Silence. Then a short warning. Hello. In a woman's voice, I said, Sarah. But the call was cut off. At night, I dreamed of a house. The Thor house, but without doors. I was standing outside, knocking, calling, begging. But no one opened the door. There was light inside. I could hear music. Laughter. There was life. But there was no door for me. I woke up with a chill in my chest. And for the first time, I didn't want to go back to sleep. Do you think we'll ever sit down together again? I think, if we ever sit down together again, it'll be a different family. We've changed George, and so have they. Maybe we're not looking for a way back. Maybe we're just looking for a fresh start. But how do you start when your heart's still in there? She took my hand. You start with silence. Like before. The way it all begins, I went to see Sam. I didn't call, I didn't warn him, I just showed up. He wasn't home. But I saw a drawing on the door, a child's drawing, and a name in the corner, Lucas. My grandson. No one told me I was a grandfather. I left a letter under the door. No offense, no questions. And it just said, I know I didn't do everything right. But I'm still here. If you ever want Lucas to know who I am, just let me know. On the way back, I didn't listen to the radio. I didn't stop for coffee. I just kept driving. The A's, if those kilometers were erasing something from me, and at the same time nothing was changed. Alice met me at the door. I just said, we have a grandson. And for the first time in a long time, she hugged me like she did in those years when everything was just beginning. Not everything can be brought back. Not everything is worth explaining. But we are alive. And that means the story is not over yet. Even if parts of it are lost forever. And while the world is silent, I leave the door ajar. If this story touched something in you, subscribe to the channel. We don't give answers. We are just not afraid to ask.